Well, hello and welcome to our thought for the day for Saturday, the 16th of May. My name is Graham Hoslett. To begin with today, some catchphrases. See if you can tell me who used to say this. Nice to see you, nice. And also this person used to say, didn't they do well? Well, of course, that was Bruce Forsyth. And how about this one? It's good night from me and it's good night from him. Who used to say that? Well, of course, that was the two Ronnies. Or how about hi-de-hi and ho-de-ho? Well, that was Gladys Pugh in hi-de-hi. And what about we're doomed and don't panic and stupid boy? Well, of course, those were the catchphrases of Fraser, Jones and Mannering in Dad's Army. A last one from a sitcom from the television. What about you've all done very well? Do you remember who used to say that? You've all done very well. Well, of course, that was young Mr. Grace off of Are You Being Served? But in real life, who said this? The ladies not for turning. I don't suppose many of us can forget that was Margaret Thatcher. And someone else who said, I fly like a butterfly and I sting like a bee. And he also said, I am the greatest and I am the best. See if you can work out who said that. We thought yesterday about the first part of Psalm 62, where the psalmist affirms, truly my soul finds rest in God, my salvation comes from him. Truly he is my rock and my salvation, he is my fortress. I shall never be shaken. And yesterday, after reflecting in verses 3 to 4 on those who still oppose him, would still topple him if they could, the psalmist in Psalm 62 has to remind himself again of the refuge that God is to him. What he says he knows in verses 1 and 2, he again reminds himself of in verses 5 and 6. Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. My hope comes from him. He alone is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I shall not be shaken. So yesterday, Suzanne encouraged us to do as Psalm 62 verse 8 says. Trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. But today, in the last 4 verses of Psalm 62, we have a warning and a wonderful promise. A warning because in times of trouble, it's all too easy to place our trust in people or things that ultimately cannot hold us, keep us, sustain us, no matter how great, stable or secure they seem. So much of what so many place their trust and hope in is so uncertain. So a warning in Psalm 62 verse 9, don't just place your trust in people. In verse 9, low-born men are but a breath, the high-born are but a lie. If weighed on a balance, they are nothing. Together they are only a breath. Who was it who said, I fly like a butterfly and I sting like a bee? Who was it who said, I am the greatest, I am the best? Well, of course, it was Muhammad Ali. Well, he was an amazing boxer. But great boxer though he was, even Ali surely didn't really think he was the greatest person who ever lived, the best person who has ever been. We are to trust others. But even the greatest and the best around us are only mortal. There's only one who is the way, the truth, and the life. Low-born men are but a breath, the high-born are but a lie. If weighed on a balance, they are nothing. Together they are only a breath. Don't just place your trust in people, but also don't place your trust in things. In verse 10, do not trust in extortion or put vain hope in stolen goods, and then, though your riches increase, do not set your heart on them. Ill-gotten gains will do us no good, but verse 10 tells us that even properly gotten gains properly gotten riches will prove a vain hope and a fragile shield. Verse 10 reminds us of Jesus' words in Matthew 6, verses 19 to 21. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, Jesus said, where moths and rust do not destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So in Psalm 62 verse 10, though your riches increase, do not set your heart on them. But this is the bit I love in Psalm 62, verses 11 and 12. After such a stark warning, a great promise. One thing God has spoken, two things have I heard, that you, O God, are strong, and that you, O Lord, are loving. One thing God has spoken, two things have I heard, that you, O God, are strong. God is strong. What the psalmist has heard in all that he has experienced, in all his joys and sorrows, in all his trouble, is that God is able to help. He is omnipotent. He is all-powerful. This is why it's worth our while, our pouring our hearts out to him, because he is able. In 1 John 4 verse 4, he that is in you is greater than he who is in the world. And Jesus said of himself in John 16:33, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. One thing God has spoken, two things have I heard, that you, O God, are strong. And then in verse 12, and that you, O Lord, are loving. He is strong, able to help, but he is also loving, willing to help. If God was strong but not loving, well, we could pour out our hearts to him, but if God was strong but not loving, we could never be sure that he would answer our prayers. We could know that he was able, but we couldn't be certain that he would always be willing. And if God was loving but not strong, well, we could never really be sure that he could answer our praying. He might be willing, but maybe not able in this instance to help me. But in Psalm 62, verses 11 and 12, what we are told is that God is neither weak nor aloof. He is always both able and willing. Perhaps today we should let these two truths sink deep into our soul. One thing God has spoken, he's got a catchphrase. Two things have I heard, and this catchphrase tells us two things. That you, O God, are strong, and that you, O Lord, are loving. And Psalm 62 ends with verse 12, the second part of verse 12. Surely you will reward each person according to what he has done. In Are You Being Served, in Grace Brothers, young Mr. Grace always used to say, at least once in every episode, you've all done very well. Well, God in his grace and goodness wants to be able to say that to each of us, to me and to you and to us all. You've all done very well. But he can't unless we have trusted ourselves to him. In verse 8, trust in him at all times, O people. Pour out your hearts to him, for God is our refuge. And then in verses 11 and 12, one thing God has spoken, two things have I heard, that you, O God, are strong, and that you, O Lord, are loving. Surely you will reward each person according to what he has done. May you know his presence and his peace today.